All right, guys. I got a special guest. And you guys know the face. He really doesn't need much of an intro, but I do believe in giving flowers. So I got to tell you, Dave, I used to be in college listening to you, listening to this and reading your work. And it was crazy because I remember you doing a draft show and it's like, damn, the draft, that's like one of my niches. That's what I really love, having a football background. So to have you on the channel, it's a blessing. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are in for a treat. Dave Helman, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the kind words. It's crazy. This has been happening to me more and more often these days. Like I started covering the Cowboys in 2013.
Yeah.
So yeah, like 12 years ago. And like I was fresh out of college. I think I was 24 when I got that job. And now I'm getting dangerously close to 40, and people will tell me like, oh man, I used to like listen to you in school, like you were doing your thing when I was coming up. I'm just like, I appreciate the kind words, but it makes me feel old as hell, to be honest with you. But no, I'm pumped to be here.
Well, listen, I'm gonna say you this, Dave. You're looking good, bro. So whatever you're doing, whatever beers you're drinking, whatever, do it.
No, I moved out to the West Coast, and I'm trying this like healthy lifestyle, like all these Cali people. I'm trying to like get my act together.
So no more LSU. Yeah, I was about to say no LSU vibes.
No, are you kidding me? I mean, we got Pat Pete, we got Pat Pete on the wall here, and well, we got Jaden over here. So yeah, it's all LSU all the time over here. I don't care where I live. That'll never change.
And Jaden, listen, Foots, I'm in DC. So Jaden is in my division now, our division. He's in my hometown where I'm at. I'm pretty sure Cowboys fans don't want to hear this. Sneakily a fan of him because he's LSU guy, and I get it. Like, dang.
Yeah, it's I got real lucky because Joe and Jamar and JJ, like those guys all went to teams that like don't really, like the Bengals and the Vikings don't really like matter to the Cowboys. Yeah. So when Jaden wound up on the Commanders, I was like, oh, that's gonna be tricky. But I can find a way to balance it. I'll always root for my LSU guys, but I mean, shit, it was kind of weird this year. Like Dak got hurt and you kind of knew the Cowboys season wasn't going anywhere. So like there wasn't a lot of juice with those Washington games. Like they were fun games, but like there wasn't a lot of juice there. But with Jaden coming up and everybody's going to be hot on the Commanders, it's going to be fun here for the next couple of years.
Now the division will definitely be good. So before we get into these draft questions and draft talk, because covering the Cowboys as you have for so long, working with Brian, doing the draft show, all that stuff, the draft is the only deal in Dallas. Like that's the biggest deal for Cowboys fans, and it kind of sucks because we aren't the major players in free agency, NFL free agency. So I wanted to ask you this: what about the draft? Like, why did you want to get into the draft and doing draft coverage, Dave?
To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I've always liked the draft. I mean, you didn't ask for my life story, but
give it to me.
I grew up in Louisiana. Before working for the Cowboys ever entered into my mind, I was a Saints fan, and like the Saints were terrible when I was a kid. Like Breeze and Peyton didn't show up until I was about to graduate from high school. So like the Saints were awful. So like all you had as a Saints fan was getting excited about the draft. I remember like 2006 when they drafted Reggie Bush. That was probably when I when I really just got into the draft as a whole concept, and like not just focusing on what my team needed to do, but looking at everything. I think it was because the Saints had all this reason for optimism because Breeze was there and they had the number 2 pick. So I was like dialed in on it. And I just came to really love it. But honestly, what happened, I got to the Cowboys and I was, like I said, I was 24. I was the new guy on the block. Nobody, like there wasn't a lot for me to do, right? Because I was like number 4 on the pecking order. And so, I was just kind of sitting there looking for a way to contribute. And my guy, Derek Eagleton, one day was just like, hey.
Great guy. Love Derek.
I owe Derek a ton. Loved working for him, and he was just like, do you like the draft? Are you interested in the draft? We got an opening on the draft podcast. because Ed Cahill, our buddy, he left for another job. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, that sounds fun as hell. And
Yeah.
I already had a good relationship with Brian, and it just kind of took off from there. But really, it was like Derek just sort of was like, I don't know, do you want to talk about the draft? And I was like, that's absolutely what I want to do. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
And listen, man, you guys got me through some seasons. It was a point where, and it's so crazy now, like it's almost overkill as far as coverage. I mean, people are covering, they're finding videos. It's funny, it was a video floating around of if Ted McMillan loved football and he said he didn't watch film. It's just over coverage and overthought, and everybody has a idea. But like back then, it was like a few people, Dane, yourself, Brian was an OG. So I always, man, you guys really kind of kickstarted some things, because I made my name off that 2016 draft and talking about Dak and, you know, him coming out of Mississippi State, and I thought he would be a good player, and the rest is kind of like history. So the draft is special in that way.
It's a weird line to walk, right? Where like it's so cool how easy it is to have a voice now. Like, I see the work that you do and I really appreciate it. I got to know Vach really well from doing draft work, and I think the world of Vach. And so like people who normally you might not have an opportunity can like build these great audiences, and you learn so much, but at the same time, there is a lot of bullshit out there, man. And it's, I always joke, like, I owe so much to the draft, and like the draft news cycle does so much to help you build your following. But every year around this time, I'm just like, can we do this already? Like, we don't need another month to sit here and stew about this. Like, you're not going to learn anything, especially like once the pro days are over. What else do we really need to do? But that'll never happen, because the NFL has geniusly figured out how to make the entire offseason, interesting. But damn, sometimes I'm just like, man, we could do this on St. Patrick's Day and save everybody a lot of trouble.
Get these kids in here earlier. Let's ride. I'm telling you. All right, Dave, here we go. And this is what I want. I want the gloves off, Dave. I don't want political Fox. Gloves off. Let's roll.
No, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Dave Helman's dream scenario at 12. Now, is it offense? Is it defense? Is it O-line? Dave, I'm not going to make you feel any way. You probably have seen my tweets. I do want a weapon, but I know that there's a responsible Cowboys fan who says, do we want to fix this offensive line? Dak has had injuries. There's also a fan that says, let's make this defense really, really good. What does Dave Helman say? Pick 12. If they're there, I want this player.
All right, well, let's start here, because I have felt something, and we talked about this before you started recording. I'll be very honest. My job has taken me away from the nitty gritty of the draft a little bit. Like I'm still following along. I still know all the important information, but I'm not like neck deep in it like I was when I was doing the show with Brian and Dane and all those guys. But just like from my vantage point, I'm nowhere near as excited about having a 12th overall pick as I would have been. Like even back in 21, they originally had the number 10 pick. And you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, Surtain and Horn would be like these incredible cornerbacks. Like either one of those guys would be so excited about. And then like the fallback options were Rashawn Slater, who everybody felt great about. And even look, at the time, a lot of people were not excited about Micah. I was, people saw him as an off-ball linebacker. A lot of people weren't sure if that was the right call. But even still, he was this super freak athlete who like opted out of the COVID season. He was obviously an incredibly talented guy. I know that there are going to be good players drafted in this draft, but I really do. I kind of believe the line of reasoning that you hear from draft experts where it's like, okay, once you get to like the mid-teens, there's like this drop off. Like this isn't a superstar caliber draft class. This isn't even last year where there were like 7 amazing offensive tackle prospects. This isn't the sexiest receiver class we've ever had. So I'm just not as excited in general. Like I'm sure there will be a good player there for them at number 12, but I'm just not as excited as I have been in the past when the Cowboys have had a big pick like this. Now, having said that, what would I be most on board with? I completely think the Cowboys need a weapon. I saw I apologize to the person that posted it. I cannot remember, but somebody posted the Cowboys depth chart. Like they just took the screenshot of the R lads, with the whole team. And I was like, holy shit, that's what they would be trotting out today. Like that is what
it's not good enough, Dave.
It's not close to good enough.
Like, here's my thing, Dave, and I want to get your pick, but it's like, this is what happens every year. And this is gloves off, right? We see this video of Dak going around. Looks like he's in shape. Then you see Jalen Tolbert, and they're buddies. But I love you, Tolbert. It's not good enough there. And I don't want to be the guy who's crapping on Tolbert because I'm not. Think he could be a high level wide receiver 3. But it's now what, year 3? Like, think about how quick we knew Michael Gallup would be good. We knew it. Come on, Dave.
Michael Gallup was a 1,000-yard receiver in year 2.
Year 2,
which I get it. Mike had Amari.
Yeah,
but although you could very easily make the point that Tolbert has had CD for his entire career. I mean, I thought Tolbert had some nice moments last year. I don't think he's a bad player, but it's very disingenuous to act like that's enough. And I mean, look, Turpin's very exciting because of how fast he is, but I don't love that being a guy that would be in like your starting lineup right now. Not somebody that you need to play upward of like 35, 40 snaps a game. I don't like that at all. I think the Cowboys need so much help at receiver. I think obviously they need juice at running back. Everybody knows they're going to do something there. So I think, I was going to say, ideally, I think the thing that would get me the most excited would be a receiver.
Yes.
And between the two, I think Tet and Golden would get me the most excited. Golden's got the speed. I know everybody says he doesn't play as fast as his 40 time was. He's still an explosive player. Like you can still see that when you watch him. Tet's just intriguing because it's a rare body type,
rare archetype. Yeah.
I'd be fine with Ibuka. I think
high floor.
Yeah, it's high floor, and like I think when you're picking 12th overall, high floor is not very sexy.
That's it right there, Dave. Like so, and I love Emeka Egbuka. In a trade back scenario, sign me up. If I get another pick, 2 picks, cool. But it's like I'm banking on a maybe he does turn into a receiver 1, but like his floor is a receiver 2, maybe. Nah, I want to miss big.
But what's crazy is like. CD's under contract for like the rest of his 20s. He's not going anywhere. Like you're going to have CD through his prime. If Egbuka is like, if he is a quality wide receiver 2 for the entirety of his rookie contract, like a guy that can step in and like right away, he's going to be an 800+ yard type of receiver with a chance to have like a 1,200+ yard type of season in year 2 or year 3. I mean, that's well worth the 12th overall pick, in my opinion. I mean, maybe it's not, like I said, it's not as fun as drafting the best edge rusher in the league at 12 overall, like you did with Micah Parsons, but you're not going to get that every year. That's not going to happen on a regular basis. So
yeah,
I think I agree with you. Like it's not super sexy, but I think it could be a really solid decision. And then the other thing, I'd be thrilled, I would even say, if they drafted a cornerback at 12.
Now you're talking. Hey, Dave, I think there's so many people who have forgotten how important that position group is. And, like, we don't know with Diggs. I don't.
We don't know what the future holds for Trayvon, how that recovery is going to go. and like I'm not trying to fire anybody on April 1st or anything like that. And maybe it'll be great. But the thing about injuries is they get more complicated when you're making a boatload of money. Like that stuff weighs more heavily on a team. Like look at Jair Alexander in Green Bay. He's one of the best corners in the league, or has been when he's been healthy. He's barely been healthy. And so now this phenomenal cornerback, people have been trying to cut him for the last 3 months because he's making too much money to not be available. So I think about stuff like that with Trayvon. We'll see how it goes. I think the world of Deron Bland, I think it's worth pointing out, well, A, he's going to need a new deal eventually. And B, he has been picked on at times when he's been the focal point of the other team's game plan. So there's a lot there that concerns me. You lose Jordan Lewis to free agency. Super happy for him that he got the bag, but it's a big problem that they need to address.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
those
you take your pick of any of the guys that might be there. And cornerback is absolutely, I think it is the most slept on problem with the Cowboys roster. I mean, I know people talk about it, but I view it as a borderline emergency. Like I think it's something you absolutely need to address before you, like what you have right now. I don't think it's good enough for the season.
But think about it. Look at the timing of that, Dave. Emergency and the ambulances are coming. Like, look at that. How about that, Dave? They're in the background. That's even God is telling us.
Hear that? Yeah,
I love it. That is a sign. God just told us you better.
That is a sign.
So it's a lot to unpack here because I'm gonna even give you C. C, you said A, B with Deron Bland. C is Deron Bland got hurt on a routine play, just stepped wrong and was out for what, 5-6 weeks. Now here's the deal for me, Dave. The level of, I feel, kind of disrespect for Will Johnson has gotten kind of crazy. Like, I'm a Will Johnson guy. I know he took a step back this year, but like when I look at prospects, I look at the run that he had on his 2023 year and that championship team. I'm like, bro, he would have went number 1, possibly number 1 to 3 in that class if he came out. I mean, he's battling some of the top guys in the league and completely, I mean, in college and taking them away. So it's a lot to unpack with what you said, because I'm also, as much as I love Emeka Egbuka, love capital L, I do believe that people have gotten Ted McMillan all wrong. Like the Drake London stuff for me, hate it. I think he's a better functional and moving and fluid athlete than Drake London ever was. And his production says that. 1,300 yards back-to-back with subpar quarterback play. I think that is, it's definitely apples and oranges for me. Everybody has their, how they feel about him. And I just think that Ted, if we want to say we're going to bring in a receiver to do his job consistently versus number 2 corners, why not swing and miss on a guy with receiver 1 upside?
I also love that. And I mean, you're at the mercy of the prospects that are available to you in any given year, but so many receivers that people get enamored with, I'm just like, well, he feels redundant to me. Like, you have CD, like we're talking about guys that you would primarily probably want to play in the slot. You're talking about guys that are like, I mean, Matthew Golden is the exception. And I think that's why Matthew Golden like leapt onto everybody's radar, because you're just like, all right, do we really need another receiver with inside-outside flexibility who would probably rather play in the slot, who runs like a 4-5? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, that's CeeDee Lamb. Like, you want your receivers to complement each other. And so I think that's what makes Tet really intriguing, is you're just like, oh, that's a big-bodied guy who can, like, he's
win in the red area.
Yeah, he can be an X receiver who's gonna win one-on-ones. Yeah, win in the red area, all that type of stuff. So I hear you on that. I do, like, I appreciate that Tet is very clearly a departure from anything on the Cowboys roster. I haven't firmly come to like an opinion on how I feel about him.
Yeah.
It does.
He's very polarizing in this community right now. Dave.
No, he absolutely is. Like, and that's I'm just gonna ride. I'm gonna ride the fence like a coward. Brian Broaddus would never let me get away with it, but I'm just like, yeah, he's not like my favorite prospect ever, but I can see the vision for why you think it would be a good call. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So Dave, great stuff there. Let's go to 2. All right. So this is one that I got for you because, okay, Dave, who was it over at NFL Network? And he said, basically, Daniel Jeremiah. And he said, you know what? I miss when the Cowboys spice things up. And and he said, why don't they move up and go get Travis Hunter? Dave, sign me up. Listen, this is how, and I want your thoughts. I'm definitely draft guy. I hate sitting out rounds and whatever the case. I would 1,000% would give up. I would say next, if I wanted to get in front of the Patriots, I don't know the chart. You probably better with the chart than me, but I would definitely give up what would it be like next year's 2, swapping picks and some other assets to get Travis Hunter. I believe in him that much. Would you be irresponsible and do that, Dave, or you living on the safe side?
So the longer I do this, the more I realize that the charts just aren't really reliable anymore anyway.
Yeah.
I think for the Patriots, you think at least 1, if not 2 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 3. The Patriots are going to have their the best player on the board has a really good chance to be there for them, whether that's Hunter or whether that's Carter. So I think it would be really, really expensive. I looked it up. When DJ said that. I think you and I were. I think that's how we got the ball rolling on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Is they said what? So in 2023, Houston jumped up to. They picked CJ Stroud at 2, and then they had the 12th overall pick, and they jumped up from 12 to 3 with Arizona, and they gave Arizona their 12th overall pick, the next year's 1. Next, and I think it was more too. I'm trying to get the tweet to load, but my Wi-Fi is being goofy. It was the next year's 1, I believe, the next year's 3 as well, and then Arizona chipped in. Arizona chipped in the current year's 4. So Arizona did give 1 mid-round pick back in exchange, but it's an expensive proposition. But having said that, my dude, I'm all the way in. I am all the way in. I've watched too much of this guy play. I think he's I would feel better about playing him at cornerback. Not that he's not an awesome receiver, but that's just how special I think he is at corner. But I firmly believe whoever drafts this guy is going to find a way to use him on both sides of the ball. Not the way in college where he's literally playing the entire game, but you'd be silly to not have a package for him on each side of the football. And then I'll just be really honest with you. Let's go back in time, 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
During Dak's rookie deal, I would have been like, you can't do that. This team only builds through the draft. You can't get rid of those type of resources. You gotta hold on to picks because picks are this team's lifeblood. Right now, I'm just screw it, dude. Who cares? That's the Cowboys' problem to figure out. If y'all don't want to spend in free agency, then this is what you're going to do. I call it the treadmill. The Cowboys are just on a treadmill where they're running really fast, not going anywhere because they just build the team the same exact way. So if you're going to substantially improve, you probably do need to do something drastic, like add an all-pro type of talent who can contribute on both sides of the ball. I mean, if Travis Hunter is a walk-in Pro Bowler at corner and a guy who's capable of getting starter
in a package,
yeah, a guy who can touch the ball on offense for you too, that's a huge deal, and you figure the rest of it out later. Ironically, it would still be irresponsible because at this point you just have to assume the Cowboys are not going to change their approach. But I just don't care as much anymore because I'm bored. I'm bored.
Yeah.
I am bored of the way they do things. I am bored of it leading to basically the same results year after year. And so I'd rather just see him do something fun. And if Travis Hunter is as good as we think he can be, it will be a ton of fun. And it's a good problem to have, figuring out how to replace those draft picks if you've got a defense with 2 great corners, one of the best edge rushers in football. Like, you can figure that stuff out later. So that's a long way of saying it's definitely irresponsible, but I'm 100% for it. I'm all in.
100%, Dave. And I think it would also be just a shot in the arm for the franchise. I mean, something that I feel like this team needs. So in 2023, Houston traded with Arizona to move up to the 3rd overall pick. They got Will Anderson. They traded in return. The Cardinals got their 2nd round pick in 2023, a 1st in 2024, and a 3rd in 2024. So it was hefty. You got to pay, but if you want quality, like, there's a difference between a Camry and a Mercedes Benz. And I tell people, like, Travis is a Corvette. There's Corvettes. Ashton Genty, Corvette. Some of these guys come in and they're like the missing piece, because the same way you feel about him at corner, Dave, I feel like he can be Justin Jefferson at receiver. Like, he is a really good receiver. Like, so if let's say we wanted to flip it, Dave, and say, okay, we have our 2 edge corners. You just go play the slot on obvious passing downs, and then you come and you play receiver and you give us more juice, because he's instant upgrade over Jalen Tolbert instantly. He can play so many different ways. I mean, go watch the BYU tape where Shadur's struggling. He throws him a slant. He runs past everybody on the field. I love Travis Hunter, man.
Can you imagine drafting this guy and you get to training camp? I mean, I don't know if this is what they would do, but I would want to see it. Is if, like, you get to training camp and it's just like, hey, you're going to do it all. You're going to you're going to be in one-on-ones. Like, you do a rep at receiver, get a blow, catch your breath, go do a rep at cornerback. We'll have you returning kicks. You're going to be the busiest man at training camp for 25 days. You're going to be wiped. And then by the end of this whole thing, though, like, we'll know where you should be, or like, you'll know where you should be, and we can go from there. Like, you could draft him at the end of April and be like, we'll give you a shot to do it all, and we'll decide, like, what your primary job is going to be in September. Like, that sounds so fun. And yeah, I mean, this isn't a reason to make these types of decisions. And like I said, it would be borderline irresponsible. But yeah, man, like, the franchise needs a shot in the arm. The fan base needs a shot in the arm. I mean, there can't be there. I know it's the biggest fan base in football, and I know the support is always going to be there. And if you're listening to this, you're like a diehard. I'm not saying
for sure.
I'm not saying you're going to give up on the team, but how many Cowboy fans are like genuinely excited about the season? Like, genuinely really pumped about the season? I don't think it's all that many, to be honest with you. So Travis Hunter would change that in a hurry. I promise you that.
I think that would send sparks. I wouldn't care about the philosophy and building the rest of the board. You need to hit, and this will be about as close to a hit as you've gotten in a long time. Okay, Dave, couple more and I'll let you go, man. So number 3 for me, and you talked about Dak earlier, and it's kind of interesting to gauge just where Dak is career arc wise. We know that he can still play, but we have to live in reality. When he was out there, whether it was the offense, whether it was just the team in general, the line, whatever, he wasn't playing his best football. That being said, Dak at his best is still good enough to win you games, and I think you can make a deep playoff run with Dak if the coaching is locked in. But he has been hurt 2 times, 2 season-ending injuries in the last 4 years. That's the facts. Dave, how early would you address the backup quarterback position? Stephen Jones, he's out speaking at the owners' meeting. I think he came out and said, I believe via Todd Archer, like, they are going to address backup quarterback. How early for you, Dave? Because we just did all this. Well, we want to give up picks for Travis Hunter, but if you don't, do you want to use? I mean, like, let me give you an example, Dave. I don't know if you watch Milroe. Okay, but what if Jalen Milroe is hanging around the second round?
Milroe's been kicking.
I'm throwing at yours. I was just like, if you Dave, you're at LSU.
I know all.
You can give me the scouting report on this guy's potential.
I'll tell you this: Jalen Milroe has played some bad games and looked like a bad quarterback many times in his college career, it didn't freaking happen against us, man.
Against LSU.
He looked like the truth every time he played us. So it's my hot draft take. I've said this before. I've said it a couple times. Like, I won't be surprised if Milrow's a first round pick. That his skill set's freaking insane, dude. I mean, he's got legit speed. I doubt he actually runs a 4.3 whatever, but like, he's like a 4.4 quarterback with a cannon for an arm. He needs to relearn like everything technical about the position. Like, he needs to, ironically, he needs to go somewhere like Dallas where he can sit behind somebody like Dak Prescott.
Hello.
I mean, that's what he needs to do to succeed in the NFL. I mean, the parallels between him and Jalen Hurts are absolutely crazy. So all that said, let me gather my thoughts here. It's depressing how quickly time moves, because
I know,
like, I still want to think of Dak as being like 29 years old and like in the thick of his prime. And the reality is he's turning 32 at training camp. He's had season-ending injuries. He's gotten beat up over the last few years. And like, I agree with everything that you said, but you should, like, mentally, it's probably time to have that in the back of your mind of like, all right, how healthy is he going to be? How many more years can he play at a high level? I do think there is some validity to the idea that it will hurt his game if he is completely immobile. Like, I don't need him to be 2016 Dak, who's like doing option keepers and stiff arming Washington players and stuff like that. But if he is like statuesque, like if he doesn't have like the same level of mobility that we've gotten used to, I think that's a big, big deal. Having said that, they just paid him, right? So like the decision is made. Like, you just paid him. He won the deal like he always does. You're financially crippled if you move on from him anytime in at least like the next 2 years. And so I still think you do your best to, like, most of your efforts should be going toward the right now, because you have committed to the quarterback in a way that it's going to make it hard to do other stuff for at least the next year or two. So give me 2 years of trying to win with Dak Prescott, and we can revisit this conversation. So I would say, ironically, they don't have a 4th round pick, but yeah, I mean, it's very, I mean, that's how Dak got here in the first place, right? Like, they drafted him in the 4th round because there were some concerns about Tony Romo's longevity. Ironically, it happened faster than anybody could have guessed, which is maybe an argument for addressing this sooner. But yeah, like fourth round, 3rd, 4th round is where I'm probably comfortable with that. Like, what's the 2nd round pick this year? 44?
44. Yeah.
So 44 seems very, very early. If you're trying to convince me that this team is still pushing to compete and be in the mix, 44 feels awfully early. Now, like, if you're listening to this, I can hear people saying like, this is exactly how the Eagles played it with Jalen Hurts. They drafted him like with the 51st pick while Carson Wentz was still on his deal. And obviously it worked out tremendously for them in the long run. You can never, like, there's no such thing as spending too many resources on the most important position. But I just think, given that you just paid Dak, you've pushed too many chips into that pile to be doing half measures right now. All right, forget 2 years. Give me 1 year of really focusing on trying to build the team around Dak. And if it doesn't work out, then I think you can put whatever options on the table you want to.
Yeah, I think if you go into this year and, by mid-season Atlanta, they could kind of tell like, hey, which by the way is an interesting comp, because, Atlanta paid Kirk last year, drafted Michael Penix very high, and everybody, that wasn't the right thing to do. And it actually probably looks like it was. So you just never know. I will say you want to see if Dak still has it, which I think we all know that he'll be fine. I just also live in a world where I don't think anybody watching this wants to wait to draft a quarterback, to need a quarterback to draft a quarterback, because I think that's another that would be malpractice. Like, Kansas City traded up for Patrick Mahomes. You look at Green Bay, they brought in Jordan Love while Aaron Rodgers was still there. Dallas doesn't really have that luxury because the team has so many needs. And what they did in free agency, shopping at, the Dollar General, which you could get some good things at the Dollar General, but is it going to be stuff that lasts a long time? Probably not. So that's the thing that hurts them.
I think that's a great point, and I always try to, I'll offer you all the opinions you want about what I would like to see or what I would do, but I always try to keep the Cowboys model in my mind when I'm talking about this stuff because, if the Cowboys spent more money and resources on their roster during free agency and I wasn't looking for one, all right, we're looking for at least one starting receiver, a better running back. We're looking for cornerback help, linebackers shaky. Like if they didn't need all this stuff, then I would be like, yeah, take a quarterback wherever the hell you want to. Like whatever, get yourself a quarterback if we feel good about the rest of this. But it's talking out of both sides of your mouth to do so little in free agency and then draft for the future. I mean, what are we doing about right now? So that's number one. And then number two is it's a little bit of a cliche, but I firmly believe the scariest thing in the world to the Cowboys is just a completely lost season, like a season where everybody knows going in or everybody knows at least early that the season's going nowhere. That is terrifying to them. They're not trying to get flexed out of the big primetime spots. They're not trying to be an afterthought. And so I think you have to keep that in mind. Like they're going to always be trying to make the upcoming season relevant and interesting. And so I don't think that they're going to operate the way that a lot of other teams would, where it's like, this is clearly like Jalen Hurts. Like this is clearly a move for 2 or 3 years from now and not a move for right here, right now. I know, I know the Cowboys do stuff like that when they think they can get it at a discount. Jalen Smith, for example, stuff like that, but overpaying at quarterback because of what might be the case in 2 or 3 years. I don't think that's the Cowboys style, to be honest with you.
No, I completely agree. And, I think that you really hit that on the head. Cause I mean, I feel it, I've been talking myself into when everybody's right. Now, when will Overshown be healthy? When will Diggs be healthy? Can Diggs return? All these different things you hit on the draft. This team isn't that far away. I mean, you said it. You bring in, I love Matt Eberflus. I had a guy on, Dave, if you want to check it out, Cody Alexander. He's really sharp. And he talked about just how good of a defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus is, how well he coaches defense. And so, like, some of these pickups that we brought in, Sanborn, Murray, were they great with their respective teams? No. But the level of detail that Matt Eberflus coaches with, especially as a coordinator, you feel good if you're healthy. So the team is not that far off. This is a team that same Washington team that went on a run, Cooper Rush beat them. Now you are looking at the Eagles, right? But other than the Eagles, you feel like you can compete. So the smart thing to do is get the team better. But then at the same time, it's talking out, like you said, talking about side of the net because you have had seasons go array the minute that the quarterback went. That was just like there was no time that me and you watching Cooper Rush ever said, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll make a run. He could have a Brock Purdy type vibe. Never. You never thought that. I know Dave Helman never thought, man, yeah, we'll get hot. We'll make it happen.
Dave Helman mentally checked out of the Cowboys season, like, probably at the end of it was so obvious before Dak got hurt that they didn't look like that caliber of team. And then when he did get hurt, you were like, okay, I mean, it is what it is. No, I hear your point. You know what though? And this isn't directed at you because this is the Cowboys though, is every year at this time, it's like, well, if this happens and if this happens and if that happens, then we could be a hell of a team. If Trayvon if Trayvon's ahead of his timetable on recovery from his injury, and if Overshown comes back, and if Turpin takes the opportunity we're going to give him and runs with it like we think that he will, and if we get the guy that we really like at running back with pick 44, like that's a nice running back. It's so many ifs. It's so many ifs. And I've been doing this for 12 years now, and I'll give them credit. It's happened a couple of times. Like there have been a couple of years where the ifs really paid off, but it's just not, it's not the way to live. It's not the right way to do this, where you're just like, if we just hit on all this shit at once, we're really cooking with gas, instead of having plans and backup plans. I mean, the Eagles drafted for Jason Kelsey's retirement like 2 years ahead of time. You know, it doesn't feel like the Cowboys are ever like 18 months ahead of the curve like that. And I'm probably not giving them credit on a couple of things, but after the last few years, why do we need to defend them? Let them show us that we're wrong, because to this point we haven't been.
Dave Helman, thank you so much. I got one more that we'll tie these in together. So we're talking about the hit rate. Been a dynamic show. So we're talking about the hit rate, and they've hit on guys like Micah. They've hit on guys like CD in the first round. And then there's been Guyton, and then there's been Mozzie, which I think that Guyton's going to be a good player, but everybody knew picking at the back half of the draft and then actually trading back and then drafting Guyton, there was going to be development that needed to take place. I don't think that his story is written. I think that Mozzie, we'll have to see. But I want to ask you this. Number one, what's your faith in, okay, they're up now in the teens. They're at 12. They've done decent up there for the most part. So they hit on Zeke. What's your thoughts? Okay, can they hit? And then number two, my second to close out, is there a guy in the second round, top 50, 60 that you say, man, I watched him watching college football? It could be one of your Tigers. It could be somebody that you say in the second round, pick 44, bring him. I don't care if it's a need. It could be, the tight end, Taylor, whoever. Give me a name, Dave, that you say I stand on the table for in the second round. I know that's a loaded question.
I do love Mason Taylor with my whole.
He's a good player.
I mean that's cheating though. Like the LSU guys is cheating. Well, let's unpack the hit rate thing first. Just
let's unpack it.
I mean it's been a rough couple years for them. I don't think you can deny that, especially 2023. Yeah, I was thinking about this during the I went back and looked at it. What was the art? I'm like Googling live on the air right now. Sorry.
Take your time. Take your time.
No, those were the two. I went back and looked at this, and I remember, and like, I don't like to be the reactionary guy, because again, I wasn't super high on Micah. I wore that egg on my face proudly. I was like, nope, never mind. You're not always going to be right about these guys. But I remember, so I don't jump to conclusions. I'm not gonna say a pick was good or bad, even during their first season, let alone before they've even played. But I remember in 2023, I tweeted, I was like, okay, it's Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker. That's fine. I would have taken Nolan Smith and Osiris Torrance. Those are the two guys that were available that I really liked, and I think they should have done that. And I was watching Nolan Smith tear ass in the playoffs, and I was just like, yeah, that would have been a lot of fun. That might have been cool. I'm not ready to give up on Tyler Guyton.
No,
I don't even have like a great selling point other than I've said this a few times too. I really love the hire of Clayton Adams as OC. I know if you're listening to this, you remember the way the Cardinals tore the Cowboys up in week 3, 2 seasons ago with Josh Dobbs. They just ran all over them. I love the idea of him bringing that scheme and also hopefully that O-line development, because Cardinals offensive line has improved here over the last couple of years. I'm excited about that. So not ready to give up on Tyler Guyton. 2023 is not looking like a wonderful draft class to this point. I'm being nice. Hopefully DeMarvion Overshown is the same guy when he's healthy again, and that can kind of bail you out. Having said all of that,
true.
I trust Will McClay and those guys. And I'll be transparent too. Like, I've got relationships in that department. I know those guys. I like those guys. I think the track record is still plenty good enough. And also, I would argue the Cowboys get into trouble, I think, when they reach for need. And unfortunately, they do it too often. They lie. Everybody lies, but they lie and say that they don't. But reaching for Kelvin Joseph in the second round because you missed on your premier cornerback, that is drafting for need. The Mozzie thing, the video is out there of them saying like, Mozzie, we think helps us more right now than Bergeron, the offensive lineman that we might
who's played well.
So we have them sitting there saying like, Mozzie probably helps more right now. They can deny it all they want to. They definitely get stuck in modes of reaching for need. My hope for them is they have enough needs. And let's be honest, they sure do. And they're high enough, right? Like they're picking 12th where somebody you feel really good about should be there. Like, I'm just doing mental math in my head. Like, there's no way more than one of those receivers is off the board. Like, maybe Tet goes, but what are the odds that 2 receivers are gone? What are the odds that all of the offensive lineman options are gone? Or, what if you get wiped out? What are the odds that a cornerback hasn't fallen because of it? Or you get my point. Maybe a defensive tackle that you really love is hanging out because there was a run on somebody else. So somebody you feel really good about will be there at 12, and you have enough needs that I don't think you should be over prioritizing anybody else. So that gives me confidence that they will hit. I think they will hit at 12. I think all bets are off once you get deeper than that. But I mean, that's the draft in a nutshell.
I want to, so go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I just want to put a pin in something that you said, because I'm telling you now, Dave, what you said about not reaching for need, I'm just looking at it. And then when I look at Will Johnson, people are going to fight me on this, and I get it. I would love a running back. I would trade up for Genty. I love Ashton Genty's game. I watched every one of his games, watched every move he's made, probably every tackle he's broken, not only this year, but last year. I love Ashton Genty. But I'm telling you now, Will Johnson is that player that if he's staring at you at 12, you would have to really say, man, if I don't take this guy, did I just trade away from Patrick Surtain? Did I just trade away from a potential lockdown corner? That did he have some injuries this year? Did he not play how he played in 2023? 100%. But his technique, Dave, the way he understands the game, playing with Jesse Minter in that Michigan scheme, he's pro ready. He's not just a press guy. He can play off, man. Like, he does all the things. He does the things. And you would be hard pressed to say, man, I traded away from that, or I picked away from that to reach. Now, if you have him at Tech graded a certain way, cool. I can see receiver, like you said, because you have so many needs. But let's say Tech's gone. Let's say, you're not really as high on Golden or Emeka. So it's just amazing how this conversation was able to come full circle in that way. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to get Cowboys fans prepared for that.
I did a mock for Fox a couple weeks ago, and my goal and not just for the Cowboys, my goal for every team was like, all right, well, let's try to create a scenario where the obvious guy for this team is gone. Because like everybody's going to mock Genty to Dallas. Everybody's going to mock a receiver. So I kind of purposely was like, all right, well, let's get those guys off the board. And what are your options? And I was looking at it and I was like, Will Johnson absolutely you should be thrilled to draft a guy like Will Johnson, in my opinion. I will say, I don't want to get into the arguments about his speed again. Like, that just goes into like the lost in the weeds category, but if there is a position where I care about your straight line speed, it's definitely cornerback. Like that is a position where that might be the only position where that really does matter. So that's something that I at least keep an eye on, but he's been phenomenal. He like you can go watch him. You don't need to be an expert at football to see that the guy's got really fantastic tape. I'm fine with that. I would be perfectly comfortable taking Will Johnson at 12, especially if you are wiped out with, your receiver options. If Genty's not there, or if you don't want to take a running back, I would be perfectly happy with that. And like I said, I think it is such a sneaky problem for the Cowboys that people don't really talk about for one reason or another.
Yeah, no, for sure. And before you go, is there a name, Dave, in the second round that you have?
So 2 guys come to mind. We'll do the obvious one first. Like everybody's going to talk about running back. And I don't know. I never have. I don't put grades on guys. I don't know where these guys are going to be available. I've never been good at judging that type of stuff. I just want to say, in this very loaded running back class, again, I'm an SEC football fan. I watch LSU. I watch the SEC week after week. I just feel like nobody talks about Dylan Sampson at all. And
good name, great name.
I think he's a really good player. I mean, he was awesome at Tennessee. Like he was great. He is a fantastic running back. At least I think he is. And I feel like, that's obviously Genty is incredible. Everybody talks about Hampton and Caleb Johnson. RJ Harvey is another name that I hear all the time. I just feel like nobody talks about the SEC's leading rusher. Like how often do you go into a draft where the SEC's leading rusher is under the radar? I think that's interesting. So if he's hanging around somewhere, probably on day 2, I think that's fun. And then another guy, again, I'm just going with guys that I watched a lot of.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I butcher his name, but another guy that I feel like nobody talks about is JT Tuamaloa out of Ohio State.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think he's awesome. I think he made impact plays for Ohio State like all the time. He was just a guy that flashed for me when I watched them. And again, not a guy that I hear getting a ton of love, which is interesting since he played for the national champions and was one of their better defenders. So those are 2 guys. Again, me not deep in draft prep at all, but those are 2 guys that jump out to me, especially like when you're talking about adding guys who can make a difference right away on day 2 of the draft. That's what I got.
So I'll piggyback on one of your names. Well, so with Dylan Sampson, he's actually in my top 60. I love Dylan Sampson. Like I'll read some of my notes, man. He creates yards where they aren't there. So great with hidden yardage and that kind of quirky scheme that they run where everybody's out so wide. Like he understands. So one of my issues with backs, and even like a lot of people love RJ Harvey, but there's a lot of wasted movement. And like he's really good bouncing things out, but he doesn't stay vertical. With one thing that I love about Sampson, despite how short he is, he sticks his foot in the dirt and works vertical. Like he's a fast, physical back. He's shorter. That's going to be the knock on him, but he is fast. He has pop. And one of my thing was one of the things that I wrote down, Dave, is I wrote it here. He has vertical vision in gap schemes. And it's like real burst. It's like real Bucky Irving type burst. So I love him. So that's a great name. And then for me, I love Andrew.
5'8" is we can work with 5'8", Like
we can work with 5'8".
5'8's fine. Emmitt Smith.
We can work with 5'8".
Yeah.
We can work with it, man. You get lost back there. As long as you're physical, I'm good.
Yeah. I just, like I said, I mean, he was a star for a team that made the college football playoff. And he has been so far under the radar, in my opinion.
No, for sure. And one more name, Dave. I love Andrew Makuba. I don't know how much you've watched him, safety from Texas. And I know
the name.
Safeties.
I'm not going to pretend like I've seen him a ton, but I remember his name from some of Texas's like playoff games and stuff.
will knock you out, Dave, is extremely physical. Just has a great feel for playing the game. Went to Clemson, transferred to Texas. He's been a guy wherever he's been. The interesting thing about him is for as physical as he could play on the roof a little bit. Like he just has a bag, man, that I just like. Like I just feel like he just has a bag that I like. And where safeties aren't, I always say you got to draft a quarterback around up. You could probably get a safety around back because the position just isn't loved. I love Makuba. But Dave, I want to let you go. We're right inside of an hour, and I know how busy you are, and I just got to tell you, thank you for doing this, man.
Like that's the irony, though. You got me amped up for the draft now. Like I'm ready to I was gonna say what pisses me off about the Cowboys is they leave so many things, like they need so many things at draft time that I don't have time for a safety. I would love to see the Cowboys upgrade the safety position, but can they afford to do that with a big pick when there's so much other stuff they got to worry about? That's what pisses me off, where you're like, okay, I love this guy, but does it make sense? And I'll let you get out of here, but I like
no, take your time.
One of my favorite players at the top of the draft is Jihad Campbell out of Bama. I think
talk about Jihad. Don't go anywhere. Talk about him, Dave, because he's a name. So remember what we said. These are the names that, let's say, all right, let's play this game, Dave. I'm glad that you're doing this. If you got time, I got time. We got time. Let's cut up. Dave, my fiance, there's a world.
We're good. We're good.
Let's go. I don't get that side eye, Dave.
No,
there's a world, Dave, where Dallas could look at Jihad and say, used to play DN. Bro, his combine performance, different.
Freak. Yeah.
Talk about Jihad, Dave.
I won't do the comp thing. We always say that. It's so dumb. I'm always like, I'm not going to compare him to Micah, but like, it's that type of thing. He's not Micah Parsons, but he is he is a freak athlete who can rush a little bit, who can drop a little bit. We're in this world where you want positionless football players. Like you want a guy who can creep up on the line, do all that type of stuff, but also isn't a liability in coverage. Like maybe you don't want him to do that all the time, but he can do that. You shouldn't, in theory anyway, need to take him off the field. He can just adapt to the personnel. He can be an off-ball linebacker. He can be a pass rusher. That type of stuff gets me super excited. It's a different position, but it's the same idea as like a Kyle Hamilton, like a safety who can play slot, who can come up and play linebacker. Like, just give me defenders who can do 4 jobs. That's what I want. And that's what I think Jihad Campbell is. But then you look at it and you're like, but the Cowboys have so many other things that they need. Can they afford that when they already have Micah and they're hoping to get Overshown back? Like, can they really afford to draft that guy knowing everything else about their team? When like the way you should be doing it is you're like, this guy rules. We're just going to draft him. But I don't trust the Cowboys to do that.
Yeah. And you being in the SEC, Dave, I trust your opinion. I always tell people this, it is different when you go back and watch the tape versus like when in real time you're watching him take over a game, or you're like, dang, how does 11 keep coming free? Or how is he knifing through? Or how is he? And it's like, I think there is a world where like him, Walker, just forward players, like, I think there's this world where these guys can play forward. If he can come in and be Anthony Barr for you, prime Anthony Barr, why not? Why not?
Anthony Barr was a hell of a player. Prime Anthony Barr was awesome. Like, yeah. So I'm with you. I mean, it's funny. Like the receivers and the running backs get all the attention, and I get why. And I would be excited. Even we don't have to do the whole thing about positional value. Like I would be excited about drafting Ashton Genty, even if it's not what I would do.
I'd do a backflip, Dave.
I wouldn't, but I would just be like, yeah, I see the appeal. I get the appeal of this. I understand. But having said that, I really feel like the defensive stuff is a sneaky bigger problem than than people realize. Like I said, cornerback scares the shit out of me. And then after that, again, it's what we were talking about 15, 20 minutes ago, where you're like, well, if Sam Williams is healthy again and he finally hits, then we're really cooking with gas. I'm like, there's that word again. There's that if word that scares the crap out of me. So I would love to add some more pass rush juice to this roster, or, a guy with a versatile skill set like Jihad Campbell. I know a lot of people really love Malachi Starks. It's the same type of deal where you're like, this guy's great at football. Does he really fit what the Cowboys need right now? Maybe not, but aren't we just trying to add awesome players to the team? Isn't that the whole point?
I thought that was the point of football, Dave, man. Hopefully the hopefully the Cowboys get it right. You know what, Dave? This was so good. Hopefully I can get you back after the draft. I know you'll be busy. I know Fox will be running you around, but hopefully I can get you back after the draft and we kind of recap and maybe touch on some of the conversations that we had, because I got to tell you, this is, you feel like, Dave, every draft is the most important draft, but I'll circle back to this because you don't know how long you'll have Dak in his prime, which I think Dak is still in his prime. I think that, I'm watching that video. I'm like, man, Dak is still doing it. I believe that he can still do it, right? So, but that being said, time's a ticking, buddy. Like, it's ticking. To have a franchise quarterback, have still a star on the O-line, a star at receiver, a star on defense, and decent cornerback play, at least from Bland. We don't know what Diggs will get. You need to make this draft count. Like, need. So hopefully we can get you back and kind of recap some things. You got any closing thoughts, Dave?
I think that's a really good point, especially not completely awful, but like these last two drafts have not lived up to the Cowboys' recent standard. They had this amazing reputation, and rightfully so. It's taken a little bit of a hit, and it's not the way I would do it, but they have put themselves in a position where this has to be an amazing draft. And yeah, it's so interesting, the Dak thing, because I'm with you. Like, I'm reasonably confident Dak's got a few more really good years left in the tank, but I thought Romo was going to be handing off to Zeke for at least 3 years, and they never played a regular season game together. That's still crazy to think about. Like, Zeke was drafted in part to extend Romo's career, and they never played together. So what we think ultimately doesn't mean anything. So it's interesting to think, like, you could nail this draft and Dak could play like he did in 2023 and the Cowboys could surprise us all, or we could be back here next January and just be like, holy shit, like we gotta pivot in a big way. Like, this thing went off the rails a lot faster than anybody ever expected. But I guess that's what makes it fun, is you never really know.
That's the irony of being a football fan, Dave. College, NFL, Little League. It's all, you never know. And let's hope that Will and them have a great draft, and I think that they will. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. Dave Helman, thank you so much, man, for joining Dave Helman of Fox Sports, formerly of DallasCowboys.com, man. Thank you for joining little old me. You know what I mean, Dave? Like, this is, like I said, this is big for me because you were one of the people that put in the work. I always tell people, you can't fake draft. You can't fake it, and you weren't. And, I mean, it was religiously. The draft show was on you, Dane, Brian. So I really appreciate you coming on my platform, man. It means the world.
It's super gratifying to hear stuff like that. And on top of that, like, y'all make me better, like, I love like listening to what y'all have to say, making sure I'm on top of my game, hearing different perspectives, hearing stuff that maybe I hadn't thought about. So it's a ton of fun. I love doing it when I have a chance. And make sure hit me after the draft. We'll definitely do something.
All right. Much love, Dave. I'll let you go. I don't want your fiance to throw a shoe at you. All right, man.
No, we'll be good. All right, man. Take care.
Much love. Peace.